Hello and welcome back to All for United, and more specifically, welcome back to Timeline Talk, the weekly show where we discuss everything that's been going on Twitter. So yeah, some MUFC related, some not. Got a brilliant panel of guests for you lined up, so I'll bring them in straight after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Welcome back. Here they are, fellas. It's good to have you on. Brilliant to welcome Keane back onto the channel. I know it's been a while, mate, so good to have you on. But we'll start as we mean to go on. Obviously, the title has sort of done us in a little bit. We're a bit too organised. We organise this too far in advance. I understand Messi now is not going to come to United, but we can talk about it nonetheless. But before we do, let's talk about the season preparation, because that's been a thing that's been talked about on Twitter. Obviously, there's been a bit of discontent towards how the Rafa Varane only arrived in Manchester yesterday. Jadon Sancho's still not back at training. So I'll bring in the first of our polls that we did on the Twitter account, saying, are you happy with the way that United have prepared for this upcoming Leeds game? And, 3/4 of the followers and of the viewers said that they were disappointed with it. So I'll come to you first, Stu. Are you worried by our lack of preparation?
Not really. If you go back 10 or 15 years, pre-season was absolutely paramount to get players back up to speed. 10 or 15 years ago, players were taking 6 weeks off. They were taking a 6-week break, really, from all types of football. There was, unless it was an international year, but ultimately, what's happening just recently, and certainly this kind of calendar year, if you look at it, a lot of the players, Jadon Sancho would have been training for 5-6 weeks with England. So he's really not been out of his training cycle. He's not been out of a cycle at all, really. And so it'd be relatively straightforward for the likes of Sancho to get up to speed. With regards to him personally, where I am a bit dismayed is I cannot quite get my head around why he hasn't come to the club 2 weeks ago. Yeah, you're starting a new adventure, a new team, different surroundings. You do want to familiarise yourself with them, get to know some of the players, some of the fringe players, actually, not necessarily the first team players that he already knows, the likes of Rashford, etc., Greenwood, but some of the fringe players he perhaps hasn't met, get to know the coaching staff that he doesn't know, get to know your surroundings. So I'm a bit... I'm really surprised actually that he had kind of elected to have this extra week or two. I thought he was due back today actually, but it appears he's not back till Monday now, from what I've heard. So a bench at best, I'm guessing, at Leeds. I would think Ollie would probably start a team that we all know, probably start in the midfield that we don't like. But Cavani is unlikely to start, isn't he? Because I don't think he's back yet by all accounts. So it looks like it's going to be Greenwood up top, Martial, and maybe Daniel James. I'd have to maybe look at it from that point of view. You guys might have a different opinion on that. But actually, when you look at the modern game, when you look at sports science, nutrition, a lot of these players have their own kind of fitness coaches, or they're sent away with these players. So actually, the knee-jerk reaction that you will always get with pre-season, I don't think will really kick in, or shouldn't kick in this year. My big worry is that we're playing Leeds, and Leeds play a very expansive, high press, very energetic type of football. And it's whether or not we can cope with that in the first game of the season, whether or not we can come out the blocks firing, so to speak. But, historically, I mean, it's up to the I'll be interested to see what the lads think. I mean, you could chuck him in, but I would bench him. I'd bring him off the bench the last 25 minutes, something like that. But historically, in the past, we've had pretty poor opening starts this season. I even go back through the Fergie years. We've lost 2 or 3 games on the bounce for the first at the first 5 or 6. So it'll be interesting. Although I will say this, I don't think we can afford to go behind early doors against the likes of City this year and maybe even Liverpool. So I think we're going to have to start pretty strong. But actually, no, I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, and it doesn't worry me too much.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll quickly answer this question. Obviously, we do want you viewers at home to get involved, ask us your questions, give us your opinions on everything that we're talking about as well. He said, John's chimed in and said, is there any possibility that Sancho may have a slight knock? Maybe that's why he's not trained. After all, he didn't play much in the Euros. Now, I'll hand this over to you after I've sort of had my say on it. I personally think, obviously, Sancho didn't play at the Euros for tactical reasons. I think, given how far we went, that was probably fair enough. But I think his holiday has been extended because the first week of his holiday he spent at the club signing contracts, doing media stuff, all that sort of thing. So I think his holiday's actually been extended for a week because of that. Is there any other theories on that?
No, I'd say you're probably right. But then again, for me, you know how I look at things, and I'm very black and white when it comes to something like this. And the modern day footballer, for me, sometimes will take liberties, and it's whether or not you allow them to take liberties. And on this occasion, I wouldn't have allowed him to take a liberty. I'd have said, look, I know you've not had much time, etc., 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 but we need you here on this particular date. I think coming back a week and only having a week's preparation isn't ideal for a player that we're going to rely heavily on for the rest of the season. So, and you want to integrate a player of his quality immediately. That's what you pay 73 million quid for. But hey, look, I'm a dinosaur, as I keep getting reminded, you know, and I see it old school way. But look, football is football. The bottom line is football is football. It may have changed in terms of, technology, etc., but the fundamentals remain the same. So if it was me, I would have been there a week early at least.
I think you look at Sancho, don't you? You look at Sancho in terms of he didn't play much, but you look at the comparisons of who he was kind of level on par with. Jack Grealish at the Euros had an injury before, didn't really play much, but he's been in training for a week. So
yes,
I'm a little bit bewildered as to why Sancho isn't back yet. And I get the signing stuff, and you want to sign a contract, but Grealish trained today, having signed yesterday.
I see we've got a clown in the comments called Rick Speak. What a clown. Taking liberties, you're talking rubbish. They're allowed holidays.
I get they're allowed holidays.
Get alive, mate. Get alive.
Is there a possibility with the holiday that it could have been quarantined? Because the fact of the matter is, it could be a reason where we don't know where he was, but
he went back to Germany.
A case where he was scheduled to come back to Friday, but because where he was, he probably had to quarantine an extra couple of days. That'd make sense if that's the case.
Yeah, I think
he did go back to Germany, didn't he? I think, yeah, he had to go back to Germany.
It's a huge overreaction. I don't think there's, it is what it is. That's simple. The facts are he's not there at the moment. He's probably not going to start against Leeds. You can't really start Varane there because you've got to integrate him into the team. You're playing a back line that's got to know each other. It'll be Lindelof and Maguire who will start as a central partnership because they've been training together and they've known each other for years, and it will take a while to integrate these players into the side. So I wouldn't say it's a bit frustrating because they're not back early, but what else can you do? You can't force them. If Sancho has been given an extended holiday, or as Keane mentioned, if he's got to quarantine, there's nothing you can do. You just got to accept it, and I think we've got to accept the fact that they probably won't start against Leeds, and we'll see a very similar side to what we saw last year. But winning the game is fundamental because we are awful at starting seasons, especially recently.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Well, quickly before I come to you, Keane, I want to bring up this comment because there's a nice question at the end saying, obviously, there's not many arrivals from Europe within our rivals, but could we be looking at fewer transfers from mainland Europe? And I want to bring up a point. You'll remember this, Henry. We obviously talked to, I forgot his name now. We basically spoke to a South American expert when we thought Moises Caicedo was coming in.
No, it wasn't Conor Clancy. It was what's his name for Caicedo? Yeah.
Simon Andrews, I think, and he was saying that obviously the stricter that the borders have become from mainland Europe means that they've actually loosened in places like Latin America and places like that. So that's actually a good question in that, he's saying keep your eyes peeled because we could be getting a lot more exciting imports from South America, sort of the route that Real Madrid have been going down, signing young Brazilians for a high fee. So I suppose keep an eye out for that. But just finally to end us on this little segment then, Keane, obviously last season we were going through a similar sort of thing. Obviously everyone had been out through COVID and everything, and we were coming back a bit rushed, and we had a really, really poor start to the season. I think you remember. Are we at risk of having that again, given that a lot of our first team players have...
I think you look at some of the players that are playing the Euros, the likes of Maguire, Shaw, Pogba, Bruno. They've had their relevant rest and they'll be back. I think we'll be okay in that respect. I think, yes, maybe in the forward areas, Sancho and Rashford not being there could be a bit detrimental. But to be honest, I think the majority of the players we have there, we should be okay for the first couple of games. Then when you integrate the likes of Sancho and Varane, in the next couple of weeks, we'll see peak performance. I think against Leeds, look, I think the biggest concern for all of us would be their high intensity style on the Bielsa. Like they've had 5-6 weeks together. They've had pre-season games, no injuries as far as I'm aware. You would be concerned about that. But when you look at the players like Maguire, Shaw, players who played a lot of games last season, went to the Euros, they got their couple of weeks rest. They're going to be rejuvenated. They're going to be wanting to kick on again. Paul Pogba and Bruno got knocked out of the Euros early, so they're going to be fresh enough coming back. Mason Greenwood didn't go to the Euros, and he's had a full pre-season. That can maybe benefit us. And then you have players there who, like, I know many people might want them to stay, but Jesse, who can maybe contribute in these first couple of games.
You're going to see that, yeah. You'll see that, yeah.
I reckon he's going to start the first game. And like Martial's coming back. You have players there who can contribute. And then when Cavani comes back, Sancho comes in, then like you integrate Varane in, and then then before you know it, you have 2 months that you gone the season, and then you've Rashford coming back off surgery. So I think when you look at this, yes, you'd have that concern because Leeds do play a high intensity style. Yes, the couple of teams were playing, they didn't have as many internationals as we had, and it could be a detrimental factor. But I don't think it's as worrying as last year, because remember last year Pogba was coming back from COVID last year, and that was still detrimental. And then we had the Europa League kind of behind that. So I think we'll be okay, but I think we should have just enough quality to get through the first maybe 1 or 2 games, and then you'll see the new signs integrate, and then hopefully be business as usual, from that.
I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in terms of attacking play. We've probably got the deepest squad we've had in a long time, and probably the hungriest squad we've had in a long time, because if you think Martial's going to sit back and allow Cavani just to walk back into the side, or, Greenwood, same situation with Sancho if he doesn't start, we've got players that are willing to, put their bodies on the line because they have to, because this could be, the pinnacle in their career in terms of Martial. He needs to put in a really good shift this season, or else he's gone, because he'll go back to France and a lower kind of standard. So we need to kind of count in the fact that these players are going to be hungrier than ever to prove a point that they are good enough to play for this club. And in the first game, I don't think Leeds are going to get off scot-free. I think these players are going to be as hungry as ever. They've got the fans back as well. That's huge. A full house against Leeds. I think when it comes down to energy, that'll give you an extra 15% that you need as a player. And we've got players that are hungry and ready, that are on the bench, which we haven't had in a long time. So this could be a really intense first game.
Oh, we've just got to be resolute, really. That's the key to the first game is be resolute, be hard to beat. You're both right, actually. I mean, Keane in particular is right. We've got a 2-week window, really, where we can integrate Sancho and Varane, because some of the players we probably won't move on until late in the window anyway. And I think it's 1st September, isn't it? It closes, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got enough time to do that. But it'll be an interesting game. I mean, somebody made a comment about the 4-3 Leeds and Liverpool early season last year. It was an absolute belter of a game, if we all remember. And I just hope we don't get involved in that type of scrap because it could be quite dangerous. But hey, look, you've got to get excited. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't be at the first game, unfortunately, but I think my first game will be Newcastle. My first home game this year will be Newcastle. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be good. Should be good.
Yeah. Well, just to close on that, then I'll go back to the fixtures. Obviously, Leeds are going to be a tough team, but you're looking after that. The next 3 games, which is probably the window we're going to be looking to bed players in. We've got Southampton and Wolves both away, and then Newcastle at home. Which, no disrespect to any of these teams, but when you put in context how they finished last season, the transfer windows they've had, and stuff like that, I think there's definitely much tougher runs, isn't there? So I think we've obviously got that run, I believe, from sort of the middle of October to the middle of November, where we're playing every single quality team in the league all in one go, aren't we? So I think if we use this as a bedding in period and get everyone ready for that, because that will be sort of make or break, I believe, even though it's very early in the season. If you don't do well in that period, there might not be much coming back from that.
By the first game, though, you want an idea of who you're going to have in your side for the rest of the season. So if we're going to make moves in the window, I know the Trippier thing might end up being a bit later if it does happen, which is that's fine because we've got Wan-Bissaka. But in midfield, you're looking to kind of build a side in that period of time where those 3 games are. You know, you can't be signing someone on the last day and then mixing things up again straight away, because you know it could cause a few problems. And the Pogba contract situation has got to be sorted by the end of next week, because I'm getting fed up by this. He either goes, he either sits on the bench, or he signs a new contract. Because I'm fed up of being held ransom by players that want out. Because we'll turn into Arsenal. Arsenal were the worst at letting players go on free contracts, and the players would just walk away. Ramsey being one of them, which they really wanted to keep, and it was just like, no, just walk away. Didn't sell him before, waited till the last minute. So these sort of things we've got like 10 days now to sort these things out. And we've got to do it as soon as possible, because waiting around is going to cause us more problems than good it will do.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a fair way to end that little segment. I think you've summarised it pretty well there, Henry. So obviously we'll move on to our second segment. It's a little bit outdated now, the title. Obviously we're a victim of our own pre-planning, but in the last sort of half an hour, Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Messi's effectively joined PSG at this point. So we're going to talk about the situation in general, how the greatest player of all time has been allowed to leave on a free. So obviously doing some research into it, it's just simply because La Liga wouldn't allow Messi to be registered as a Barcelona player again, given all the rules that Barcelona have broke financially recently and all those sort of stipulations. So I'll open it up to the board. You know, how can this have been allowed to happen?
You look at the financial situation at Barcelona, the ridiculous transfer fees they've paid and wages in the last couple of years has been absolutely ridiculous. Coutinho, Dembele, players like that, Griezmann, you look at the wages they're on. It's not sustainable. And then the fact that these teams were getting bailed out by the Spanish government. And then obviously Spain as a country are having their own financial issues at the moment. This was bound to happen. Like, this has been building for years. And look, fair play to La Liga. To be fair, I think they're not letting them get away with it. I think and look, people might think I'm being bitter because I'm a United fan or whatever, but fair play to La Liga sticking to their guns and not falling kind of to Barcelona in that regard. I think they've been really running their club into the ground in the last couple of years, and I think looking at it now, they're paying the price. And you look at their business this summer, they went in and they've got a load of free contract players, and they can barely even register these players. Do you know what I mean? Like, in terms of their financial, I was reading today, like, in terms of their income, like 95% of Barcelona's income at the moment is going to wages. 95%. That's absolutely ridiculous. when you think about it, like that's not sustainable. And long term, there's going to have to be a serious revamp of that club. And it's going to be worse than the AC Milan situation when they went south, and they're obviously still going through their rebuild at the moment. Barcelona are in serious trouble, and then seeing a player like Lionel Messi not getting his send off almost, in front of full Nou Camp, that's a shame. But the move to PSG, I know Stu will give his thoughts on that in a minute. But look, if PSG did not win the league and the Champions League next year, I know there's a lot of Man United fans who are also Pochettino fans. Pochettino should never get a job in football again if he doesn't win both.
There's a fundamental problem with Barcelona at the moment, and with a lot of other clubs. They're joined by Juventus and Real Madrid, especially at the moment, in terms of the amount of debt they're accumulating and the problems with wages. I think before tax, Griezmann's earning €800,000 a week. What on earth is that? That's ridiculous. That's like $500K a week in our terms. Like that's beyond me. That's stupid. But there's two words that always stick out when we talk about financial trouble, especially in the last year, and that is Super League. And this whole thing with La Liga refusing to register Lionel Messi has stemmed from the problems with the Super League. And by the looks of it, Barca have offered them, I believe it was like a CVC contract or something, which basically said they've agreed a deal with an outside bank or corporation to put more money into La Liga on the basis that Barca signed this deal and say that they're not going to get involved in the Super League ever again. And that would have generated over £200 million more for them as a club this year.
Yeah, it was 2.3 billion injection. It was CVC Capital. They used to own F1. They're a venture capitalist firm. But essentially, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
So it was per year. I think it was some sort of long-term deal. Per year, they were getting hundreds of millions. And they turned it down because they still want the Super League to happen, as have Real Madrid. What I understand, they don't want to sign the deal, and La Liga have basically said, because you're breaking the wage structure and you're not signing this deal as well, that means you can't sign your best player. And Messi accounts for 30% of their revenue a year. 30% of their revenue. This is a situation where, and I don't want to sound melodramatic, Barcelona could go bust because they haven't got him back on a contract. He generates more than they give him in wages, and he was willing to take a 50% wage cut as well, just to allow him to be registered as a player. And this is Barca's own doing. They poor mismanagement from Bartomeu, who's also got arrested, which. Basically accused of money laundering and falsifying the books, which is never good. And you've essentially got a club that is in serious trouble if they don't. They might not be able to register these free agents because financially it might not be be feasible. But seriously, this is a club. This is a dynasty, and I don't like Barca. I don't like Real Madrid. But they are football heritage clubs. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they are basically Spain. That is, as soon as you think of Spanish football, Barca, Real Madrid, top two. Those are the first two that come to the forefront of your mind. So we could be looking at Barca if La Liga don't step in, or if Barca don't sign this deal that has been put forward. We could be looking at Barcelona going into some serious danger. And again, not being able to sign Messi, they've taken away, I think they lost 5 million Instagram followers in the first in the first 7 or 8 hours of announcing that Messi was going. That's ridiculous. I know Instagram, whatever, it's all social media, but that's ridiculous. People that support Messi. They don't support the club as much as they support the player. So they'll follow him wherever he goes. And I'm just astounded that Laporta's playing victim when he could have signed that deal and given them a higher chance of signing the player. And he has made an absolute mess of this. So him playing victim is his own fault because he's screwing the club as Bartomeu did.
Well, listen, sorry, before I hand over to you, Stu, I will
Yeah.
just sort of rub salt in the wound of Barcelona a little bit. Obviously, as Henry was saying, people neutral support Messi, not Barcelona. And obviously, I think we've all dreamt of going to the Camp Nou to watch El Clasico, to watch Lionel Messi play live. There's none of that appeal now, is there, to the neutral fans? What, you're going to turn up and watch Depay wearing his number 10 shirt? No one cares. That's going to lose him a lot of revenue. And also something that I've sort of read and seen, I don't think it's confirmed, it might be, but basically the new La Liga TV deal as well, which Barcelona and Real Madrid weren't allowed to sit in on negotiations because they were refused to leave the Super League. So basically the La Liga have sold the TV rights for around £280 million a year, which when you put into context, that's what, 4 billion that the Premier League gets. That £280 million a year split between 20 teams. Barcelona's finances aren't even going to be boosted by the TV money now. So they really are a sinking ship, aren't they?
It's going to be worse than AC Milan. I said it. It's got definitely 100%.
Well, the problem you got is that when you sign or offer a contract to a player at 100 million a year, 100 million euros a year, then there's absolutely no way when you look at the whole depth of the squad that the revenue and turnover of any business would be able to satisfy that. Yes, he was what, 30% of Barcelona's turnover, but you can't rely on that type of income stream as against those types of wages that you're paying out. It's just not economically possible. The idea about the Super League was to bail Barcelona and Real Madrid out of their financial hole that they're in. The CBC Capital, that's actually the first that I've heard that a venture capitalist firm was going to take any stake in any league around the globe. I mean, I'm not saying it's that there aren't stakeholders in other leagues, but it's the first I've heard of a venture capitalist firm willing to lay down, I think it was 2.3 billion. It's a lot of money. Really, and the Spanish league is only really based on 3 clubs: that's Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atleti. So it's an interesting situation. I quite like the CEO of La Liga. He's dug his heels in. I mean, he's been pushing for City and PSG against financial doping for years. Tobias or Tobias, whatever however you pronounce his surname. He's a very astute guy, and he's very vocal as well. But there's something deep inside of me kind of doesn't see it as a bad thing if Barcelona were to go under. I think football needs one hell of a wake up, a shake up. When you look at our own current market and you look at where we are now with potential English players, homegrown English players, now that Jack Grealish has gone for this magical 100 million, I mean, fucking hell, guys. What is Harry Kane worth today in Daniel Levy's eyes? What is Declan Rice worth now? You are going to have to put on a 20 or 30 million premium now on any player you would consider going for because of this stupid deal the City have done with Aston Villa. And you can't blame Villa. He had a get-out clause, a release clause of 100 million, supposedly. The City have gone and paid it. But football as a whole, wages as a whole, it's all going out of control. It's spiraling out of control. I mean, I read somewhere that Grealish is supposedly on almost 400 grand a week at City. Now, nobody knows exactly what De Bruyne is on, but 400,000 a week, it's ridiculous. Now, City can, and the likes of PSG, they can afford to do this. And this brings me back quite nicely to Messi. The disappointment and anger I'm feeling about Messi, one of the finest ever footballers to grace the game, going and degrading himself by going to someone like PSG purely and simply for money. At his stage of his career, when you've been on 100 million euros a year contract, and you're really only going for money because there's only a very, very small amount of clubs who will be able to pay Messi what he wants. I mean, Henry quite rightly said that Messi was looking at a 50% wage cut. I'm still netting 50 million a season, 50 million euros a season. It's obscene for a footballer. And people can say what they like. They can disagree with me as much as they like. But the bottom line is, when you are a talent like Messi, who could go and play any club he wants, why wouldn't you go and test yourself? Why would you go? Why would you go and take your deck chair with you?
Well, he's got his mates there, hasn't he? He's got his mates there. He's got Neymar and co, Argentinian teammates.
But if I was at Ligue 1, the president of Ligue 1, and Messi was to sign for PSG, then you've got a real problem. That league has a massive problem. Yes, it will give them the exposure that they won't have had since, I mean, look what, Keane talks about AC Milan. Look what Ronaldo did for the Italian league. He's totally rejuvenated it himself. But the Italian league had a little bit more about it. It had a little more depth. It had a little bit, had a bit more kind of spunk about it, didn't it? Whereas this French league, it's nothing. I mean, it is nothing. We've all seen that. We know there was a bit of an anomaly with Lille winning the league. But really, where would they sit in the Premier League? Probably mid-table. They're not a good outfit, Lille. So when you look outside of PSG, potentially Monaco, but the guy doesn't throw the money at Monaco at the minute. Messi literally is packing a deck chair on his back. He could play with his right foot and he's left-footed. Or he could play with his right foot in most of the games in France. And PSG can absolutely walk it. So initially, it's great for Ligue 1, but the damage it will do if PSG now just steamroller it now, and I mean steamroller it by 30 points year in, year out, it's going to damage the integrity of the league. And we've all said, haven't we, or independently, when you've been talking to your mates down the pub or having a chat, on social media or through YouTube, we've all said that the French league has been destroyed by Qatar, and it's just going to get worse and worse. And he will earn his 100 million there. And so I'm not saying come to Manchester United, because for me, I don't think he would fit. He would fit us anyway. But why don't you try go into a club and try and prove something in the latter stages of your career? Just try something new. But I'm sick of this. I'm fed up of this path of least resistance nonsense that these players go for. Grealish at City, Kane at City if he goes. I'm fed up with it. When are the players going to have some ambition? When you go to a club, see what their kind of project is, buy into that project. Like Varane, let's give Varane a lot of credit. He's bought into what we're trying to do. So is Sancho. I'd love to see Messi choose a club somewhere like where we are in our development or our rebirth, if you want to call it, and try and do something and try and take them to that next level, rather than go into a club that's already there just for an extra, few million quid in your already swelled bank account. And so I don't think it's footballing reasons. I mean, you guys might disagree with me, and I'll take it. I'll take it on board. But for me, it's not a footballing decision. It's a money decision. And for the best player currently alongside Ronaldo, to me, that's disappointing.
Well, just before we go on, I do have to bring up Brown Knight's comment. He's a regular contributor. What you've just missed was a beautiful, beautiful rant by Stu. Our weekly Stu rant. You missed it, and you're gonna have to watch. You're gonna have to rewatch it when it gets uploaded as a video. And subscribe as well while you're there. That'll be very handy. But go on, Henry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and this might sound a bit big-headed, but ever since Sky and La Liga parted ways in terms of their the viewership and the exposure that La Liga got from that, it's been a kind of downhill struggle for La Liga to get any sort of TV deal that's going to satisfy what they want in terms of financial power, I guess, in Europe's big leagues. And I think the problem they've got is they went to I can't remember the broadcaster's name, but for 2 years they went bust. They've now gone to Premier Sports, who are in financial.
Irish. They're the Irish.
That's the Ireland one, yeah.
They're in some sort of. I know they're in financial trouble at one stage, whether that's still the case or not. It's been the problem we've got is football is spread across so many different channels, but Sky now have got the rights to the Bundesliga, and I think that is going to be uplifting. The people that watch the Premier League are going to watch the Bundesliga now. That's going to be uplifting for the league. That's going to bring more money in for the teams. It's going to generate a whole lot more interest than it would have done previously. Yeah, basically.
Very good brand.
I think it's chaos that has ensued ever since Barca and Real Madrid haven't got their precious TV money from Sky. It's been a downhill struggle where they thought we're going to get a huge TV deal. We can spend this much on wages. We can go out and buy the best players. And then it got to a stage where they're thinking, oh, we clearly haven't bought enough good players, so we're going to have to go out and buy more to get a TV deal that's going to satisfy the financial needs of the club. And it's just gone downhill. The money's gone downhill ever since. I'll watch La Liga games every now and then because I've got a Bet365 account, which I keep like 50p in. You can watch the La Liga games on there. But I highly doubt they're paying a huge amount of money. I highly doubt they're paying massive amounts of money. I'm not going to pay for Premier Sports, Sky, BT, whatever else you're gonna pay for, because it's too expensive. And a lot of people that would watch the Premier League and La Liga years and years ago, there's zero interest anymore. The worry they've got is how are they going to generate any money, even with this deal from a huge banking corporation? How are they going to generate any money to come in and spend money on players? It's going to be back to square one for La Liga. And Real Madrid, the idea that they're going to be, they might bring in Mbappe, and Mbappe might, kind of rejuvenate the league a little bit. But it's always been the El Clasico of the greats. Always. You've always had great players. This year, if Mbappe doesn't go there, it's going to be Griezmann against, I don't know, Benzema.
Exactly. Griezmann against him.
Griezmann against Benzema, who's aging, and he's a good player, but he's aging. Who is going to want to watch that? I'd rather watch Haaland against Lewandowski in the Bundesliga. You've got a real problem, and Stu, you're 100% right in terms of this is where maybe they do need a bit of a kick in the arse and to be kind of almost sent under to the stage of liquidation, like Portsmouth or something, where they go under because they've spent too much money. Leeds fans, I know they won't be watching this, but they'll sympathise with this because Risdale sent them under by spending so much money on wages and players. So this could be another situation like that. There's just not enough money from the customers to go into the leagues, and the leagues are suffering for it because they think we've got to spend more money on players. This is it. This is an era of Premier League dominance for the next 5 or 6 years, I think. Yeah,
I think you're right, mate. I do.
Well, listen, we need to sort of move this topic on a little bit. So I'll ask one more question. I'll ask you, Kean. You've not said anything in a while, so we'll get you back involved. And then, obviously, Henry and Stu, feel free to chip in afterwards. But, seeing such a powerhouse of football in Barcelona go under the way they have with all this, 1.2 billion euros of debt, does it make you worried about the current situation at United? Obviously, the debt's a lot more stable, but nearly £500 million of debt is no small fee, is it?
It's not. But with the way it's regulated here in England and the way our income is, I couldn't see us getting into a Barcelona situation because gone are the days of us really giving out ridiculous wages. I don't think we'd ever pay a player. I'm saying this now. I could be caught in 4K in a couple of years' time, but I couldn't see us paying a player £1 million a week or 800 grand a week if they were not good enough. Couldn't see us going down that route. And just the way our club is run and the traditions this football club. I could never see that happening. You said like £500 million of debt, that's a lot of debt, but the way our club's income is and the way our fan base is, there's no way it happened. We wouldn't go down the Barcelona or Leeds United route. I think we're too big of a club. And that's not saying that Barcelona are a small club. They're a massive club in Spain. But like Man United are the biggest club in the world, give or take, between us and Real Madrid. People can have that argument, but United are the biggest club in the world. It couldn't happen. No way. But you would have the concern with the way our ownership is, and they leave and leave us with debt and do even worse owners come in, and then you'd never know. You can never really look too far into the future. But with the way our football club is and the fact how big we are, I couldn't see us going down the Barcelona route or the Leeds United route. I think we're trying to change. I know you can't really trust the Glazers as far as you can throw them, really. But you look at the appointments we're making in the last kind of couple of years, Murtaugh, Fletcher, obviously they're positive enough appointments. You're seeing kind of the restructuring in the football club at first team level, academy level. Things look like they're going in the right direction. It's just as long as the Glazers are at the helm, you'd always have that slight bit of concern. But I don't think you'd go down that path and possibly go bust. I don't think that'll ever happen, really.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about debt, and Keane, you're 100% right, actually, but you really are. If you were to look at the financials for most of the largest businesses globally, a lot of them will carry debt because what it does, it increases cash flow. And that's what happens with us. We're carrying an amount of debt, but it increases our cash flow or frees up our cash flow. Now, the interesting thing about it is our debt is serviced exceptionally well. We are nowhere near having an issue, with our debt and our debt repayments. And the other thing about it is you can always restructure debt. And a club like Manchester United, with its history, its heritage, and its actual earning power, because earning power is key to debt. We could quite easily restructure it. And I think the Glazers have restructured it 2 or 3 times, 4 times. And there's a lot to be said, actually. This is going to sound a bit strange, but having bankers within our board purely and simply to look at our structure, our financial structure and our debt, and it does help with the way that our club is run. So from that point of view, I know fans don't like debt, but it's a business. And businesses carry debt. It's as simple as that. Keane, I'll tell you, if he was to look at BT's books, there'll be an amount of debt on BT's books. And, and they're a global conglomerate worth billions. But there will be a certain amount of debt. And it's one of the reasons, actually, they had to spin off the OpenReach side of it because they were so big, BT. They had to spin off OpenReach and things of that nature. But that's a different story. So the debt itself, no. But a lot of fans don't like it, and I can see why they don't like it, and I can understand why they don't like it, because we went from a debt-free club to 500 million or 440 isn't it, or something along those current lines currently. But you have to bear in mind that the Glazers leveraged Manchester United. They only put $250 million of their own money in, and they borrowed the rest. Now, when you consider I think they bought the club for 790 mil. The club is worth now probably 3 billion, 4 billion, say, on the open market if you were to start a bidding war, because that's what would happen with Manchester United. Just say, for argument's sake, with the debts and every other write-downs you've got to do, the Glazers are still going to walk away with 3 billion quid. Now, whether people like the Glazers or not, and Keane's absolutely right, I don't. Henry knows I don't. James, I don't. From a business acumen point of view, I'm sorry, you can't argue with it. And the Glazers have actually grown Manchester United to this level of being able to service the debt. And that's why it's not an issue. What will become a problem is if we start running into issues with our sponsors and the clauses in our sponsorship contracts if we're not making the cut. And that's why, unfortunately, I think with our Adidas contract alone, we've got to be in the Champions League. Otherwise, we take a 25% hit. That's why the Glazers will always be happy. And Ollie will never be moved out, providing he stays in 4th place. So, look, I'm not saying debt's great. I'm not. All I would say is it's not an issue at this point. I think Keane, you explained it pretty spot on, mate. If I'm being honest, I've just elaborated on what you've said.
I think the ownership model in our league, the idea that you can have one person that can own a club, it gets criticised a lot. But I think we're looking at a real fundamental issue with other clubs. Barca and Real Madrid, they've got elected presidents. They're not owned by one specific person. They've got socios who have voting rights in their club.
Yeah.
So the problem they've got is they're not being bankrolled by anyone, and this sounds terrible because you've got City and you've got PSG who are able to, their owners are multi-billionaires. They can pay as much money as they want for players. Barca are in trouble because they're not owned specifically by one person who can inject a large amount of cash. It's not possible. So they can't just magic their way out of it like another club could and get in another owner, because the La Liga ownership model doesn't allow that to happen. And the same applies with the Bundesliga. And I get the idea of being owned by fans, but this is the downside to it. If you're owned by your supporters or socios who have been elected, you've got, Bartomeu, who was a crook. He got elected by the people under him because he probably paid him a fair bit of money.
He was a crook,
So you've got a problem in the sense that the clubs that are being owned by big multi-billionaires are the ones that are succeeding, and the ones that are owned by fans or socios that buy into the club, they're failing. So and they'll continue to fail as long as they don't have the big ownership. So if you're mismanaged ever so slightly, there's no way you can get out of it. So they've got a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Spain, the disparity was huge anyway, because I know some time ago, Real Madrid were bailed out by the Spanish government to the tune of a few $100 million, weren't they? Because they see Barcelona and they see Real Madrid as the clubs that cannot go. And I suppose that's a big issue for... Look, I suppose when you look at football ownership, I'm amazed... and you could never do this because it'd amount to it being a cartel, and it would never work. But I'm amazed that when you look at some of the biggest clubs, there's only a finite of clubs that players aspire to play for, isn't there? There's Real Madrid, there's United, there's Barcelona, there's Liverpool, Bayern Munich in there. AC Milan would be in there purely on history.
Arsenal probably back in the day.
Arsenal, yeah, I'd agree with that. But there's only a finite of clubs, and I was always amazed why some of these clubs never got together and strategized about a ceiling for these players, a ceiling of wages for these players. You couldn't do it because it would create a monopoly, a cartel, and it would create unfair competition. But when you look at other clubs who don't have the power and the income power to compete with those clubs, it would have made sense back in the day. But right now, you just couldn't. Yeah, cartel is a keyword. You just couldn't do it. But something's got to give somewhere, hasn't it? I mean, if you look at football, something's got to give, but I don't know what the answer is.
We're looking at a situation where Everton could beat Barcelona if they're in Europe this season. A club like Everton, because they've got a billionaire owner who's forking, his money, he's shoveling his money into the club. They're building a new stadium. They're building a big squad. They're building a quality team. We're looking at Leicester, who are really well run, but they've got a big financial backing behind them where they can spend loads of money on players. We're looking
Villa.
at
What about Villa?
Yeah, Villa as well. Yeah,
isn't he one of the third richest owners in the Premier League?
Yeah, we're looking at a prime example of what's going to happen in the future, where Barca might be in the Champions League, but they'll be competing against sides that they won't get out of the group stage in the next few years if there's not some sort of financial backing behind the league. The league's demise. All the players will leave because they want more money. They want better competition. The Premier League at the moment is the best competition in the world. I know people say, this, that, and the other, but I think factually at the moment, in terms of the competition, anyone can beat anyone. Barcelona up against Eibar, who are you going to put your money on? If United are up against Watford this season. Who are you going to put your money on? You go, probably United, but I'm just not 100% sure. So the league's demise will continue, and they need to change their ownership model. I'm saying it now, and I think it's terrible that we're having to say it, but they need to change their ownership model where they can have one owner that can inject money into the club.
I wonder how much. Sorry, King, did you want to come back in, fella?
No. Work away, lads. I'm enjoying this.
You might be able to you might be able to have an opinion on this. Actually, I wonder how much strong arming Barcelona are trying to put on, La Liga with regards to Messi, because they've made it very, very public about why he's not signed. And I think Messi's come out and put a similar statement, hasn't he, about his surprise at not being able to sign this contract. So I'm just wondering, I've got absolutely nothing to back up my theory here, but I do wonder whether or not there's a bit of brinksmanship going on. I appreciate what.
I think it could be a case of one, like they're trying to do a bit of one-upmanship, though, that type of way, because it's like they're almost trying to hang La Liga out to dry, really, isn't it? Like, you're letting us get rid of our biggest prize asset. You're arguably, since Ronaldo's gone, the biggest prize asset in this league. And it's like almost like, okay, you didn't leave us into the Super League, and you're really hanging us out to dry. Well, do you know what? We're piling all the blame on you, despite our flaws financially. That's what they're doing. Then Messi, obviously being Barcelona through and through, you could hold it out for debate. Obviously, he's going PSG. He obviously has that same opinion because he's come through the academy. He's played there all his career. Ideally, he's settled there. He doesn't really want to leave, because if he wanted to leave when City put that offer in last year, he would have left for Pep Guardiola, who was probably, when you look at Messi's most successful time at Barcelona, you can argue it was under Guardiola. So really, he's been pushed out the door. But you can't really blame La Liga, because it's Barcelona's doing with the way they've ran their club, and they've got bailed out for years, and then wanting to go into a Super League to get bailed out. I don't feel one bit sorry for him. And
no, neither do I.
To be fair, it's all their own doing. And look, if they're trying to blame La Liga, it's a collection. It's not just one person or one association. It's all the above. La Liga for leaving Barcelona do what they've done. Barcelona's fault for paying over the odds, and then Messi really for accepting. Well, look, anyone's offered £1 million a week. You're not going to say no, are you? But
no, of course you're not.
There's a fine line, and I think it's finally been broken. And look, it's gonna affect every single one of them. Probably not Messi. He's probably going to get a big wage package in at PSG. They can afford it, but La Liga and Barcelona, they're in massive trouble. And it's great to see the Premier League. I know we didn't win anything in Europe last year, but it's great to see the Premier League be a strong force in Europe again. And it's going to be like that for the long term, I can tell you that much.
I think you're right.
Sorry, carry on, Stu.
I was just saying, I think you're right about us being a Premier League being a force for a long time. Yeah, I agree. I think it's our turn. It's our cycle again, I think.
Yeah.
The purpose of that press conference from Laporta was to slap the blame on La Liga and say, we're not losing our biggest asset. You're losing your biggest asset. So hold on a minute. Are you going to allow Messi to leave and allow the league to go into a spin, a cycle where, the clubs have no financial power and have no European, trophies for the next few years? He was essentially saying he planned that press conference. I'd say perfectly, in terms of it was, are you going to really allow your best player, your key asset, to leave the league? And the answer was simply, well, it's your own fault. So yes. So he kind of got it, stuck it up in, which was quite ironic.
Well, it's like you say, I suppose, the way that they've been. I've got no sympathy for them either, by the way. I've got no sympathy whatsoever. I don't like how football is run anyway. From a global perspective, it's all a cesspit of people are in it for themselves, aren't they? But it is what it is. It is what it is. So
yeah, it is a shame. Obviously, I completely get what you're saying. I don't feel much sympathy for Barca, but obviously, what Barca represent, their history, everything. You know, the game wouldn't be where it is today without them. So it is sort of sad to see them going that way. It's also sad that this has led to them losing Lionel Messi because he didn't want to go. They didn't want to lose him. I think I feel more sorry for him than anything. You know, I think given the choice between Barcelona and PSG, you're choosing Barcelona every time, aren't you? So
Of course you are. Yeah, of course you are. Yeah.
So it's a shame on that front, but you know they're a big enough name. If by some miracle they can get this sorted out, they will be back. How long it will take is unknown, but you know I've every faith that they will be back. But yeah, we did have another topic to cover, but there was no way I was cutting that little debate short. So we'll skip over it.
I enjoyed that.
That'll just about bring us to the end of the episode, unless anyone else has got anything to add.
I was just going to quickly say, where do they go from here? You're right, James. Where do they go from here? What's going to happen now? Because they've lost a huge chunk of. I saw Brown Knight put about how the La Liga died when Cristiano left, and he's 100% right, because it was the rivalry. That's the last big rivalry you've had in La Liga, in terms of the top two or top players going head to head in one league. That's the last time it's happened, and it's baffling. Like, where do they go from here? Because could they make an example of Barca and relegate them if they try to break the wage structure?
So somebody put a comment, didn't they, earlier on? I mean, I haven't seen a report about it, but they're suggesting Aguero's looking at his situation now. I don't know how. I don't know.
I've been checking Twitter throughout the show, and apparently that is being reported. It's not just being made up in the comments. It is being broadcast all over Twitter as we speak.
I mean, but imagine being Aguero. Imagine being him. You go to play with your best friend, basically a family member, and you're going to Barcelona thinking, I'm going to help them win the Champions League again with Messi, and now you're playing with Memphis Depay and Martin Braithwaite. Like, fuck's sake.
I forgot he was there.
It's a mess, though. It's a complete mess, and I've never seen one player dominate a league and control a league on strings like Messi has with La Liga in the last few years.
And the other thing is, lads, how sad is it going to be where you would at one point look forward to watching Barcelona come to Old Trafford if it ever happened, and now you just won by. Would you really be that bothered?
It's a bit of an inconvenience more than anything now, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? The Barcelona against Bayern Munich, or Barcelona against Manchester United. Those are mouth-watering ties all the way back, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. We've witnessed Barcelona pass us completely off the Wembley turf when they beat us 3-1 in the Champions League final, completely. And we were at the top of our game at the time, and they completely destroyed us. And the chances of ever seeing that again in the next maybe 10 years, it's just sad.
In 10 years' time, you'll have a 50-year-old Gerard Piqué still playing centre-back for them because they can't.
Probably will, yeah.
They're going to have to rely heavily on that academy. They're going to have to, they haven't done it in nearly 10 years now.
10 years, yeah.
In about 10 years, they haven't relied on the academy. Bar the exception of Ansu Fati, Pedri, the few in the last, let's say, 5-6 years. Who really has come out of that academy in the last 10 or so years? They're going to have to go back, they're going to have to try adapt that model again, and can they invest in the academy now because the financial trouble they're in? They're in a deep now.
The academy is a perfect example of the financial trouble they're in, though. Obviously, you look at their outgoings from their academy and what effects they're having on the European stage. You've got, Grimaldo at Benfica is one that comes to mind. He's one of the best left backs in the world. Yeah. There's players scattered everywhere. Hector Bellerin. Obviously, there's players that they've sold and then since brought back. So I get what you're saying. There is this. Barcelona are now sort of raising an academy for profit more than performance on the pitch, which is very much indicative of the way they've been going.
Well, they can get good money for Fati, can't they? And probably Pedri. They'll probably get good money for those. But
the thought of that 10 years ago, that they're going to have to get rid of their players to generate. Happened. No, exactly. And it's the same with, you look at Bayern Munich, they never let go the best players that they've got unless they really do run down their contract. They never let the best players go. They just don't let it happen. But Barca have got a problem here where they have to generate the money to balance the books year on year. And it's going to leave to academy players going, well, Barca's historic, but I don't really want to, I don't really want to play there. So I'll just go to the Premier League. Or, now that you haven't got Messi there, who players aspire to go and play next to Lionel Messi. You look at all of the players that join, they say, I want to play next to Lionel Messi. I want to play alongside him. It would be an absolute honour. And now you've got a situation where the pull of him was more than the pull of the actual club. So the idea that they're going to be able to bring in top quality players, it's nonsense now. They're going to have to get rid of all their quality players. And it's going to, again, lead to a further demise. And I think Real Madrid are going to be competing with Atletico until more problems arise, because Atletico, they can't spend any money, and
no, they can't. Yeah.
Like Sevilla and Valencia, this is an opportunity for them now to really kind of push on now.
Yeah,
so, I mean, they should smell blood at this stage and maybe try and move on. Maybe see the likes of them push on in the league? And like that could be a possibility. Do you know?
Villarreal maybe.
Could make it more competitive. Imagine a league that's more competitive without Barcelona being one of the top three sides.
Amazing.
You couldn't write it if you'd have said it. You could put £1 million on that happening, and you'd be a multi-billionaire. And it's just
you could buy Man United then, couldn't you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Therein lies our problem, doesn't it? And I know Keane, you touched on it earlier, but if our owners ever did decide to sell us, it could be the poison chalice again. So,
but just quickly to end my points with the Super League, now that everyone's signed off on, United aren't going to get involved. All the Premier League clubs have said basically not going to happen. The German clubs have said that it's not going to happen in the first place. Is it seriously going to end up with Real and Barca going, we'll just play against each other week in, week out? Because they have no other option now. They're not backing down. They're going to pay a price for it. As you mentioned, Stu, the La Liga president is going to bury those clubs if they keep on with this. He is going to bury them in the ground alive, and he won't have any sympathy doing it. So if they don't pull out of that deal with the Super League, I know they'll get a hefty fine because they've got an agreement. But if they don't pull out of that deal, both clubs down. Seriously, both clubs are in serious trouble.
Like we say, maybe it needs to happen. Sorry, James.
Maybe. Well, listen, we've gone over our allocated hour. I will just bring
you
this
are
up.
In trouble, pal. You are in trouble.
I know. I might not be on ever again because I'm walking on thin ice with Ben.
Fired. Fired.
Yeah. I did want to bring this up just to give you credit, Jacob. This is a phenomenal question, and you need to keep it in mind for the next show because we don't have time to discuss it.
Yeah.
We haven't got time to discuss it now, but please comment this on another show because I would really like to talk about this. So keep that in mind and like and subscribe while you're there as well. But that's about all we've got time for. So, boys, it's been brilliant to have you on. Keane, really appreciate you joining us as well. Appreciate your time. I understand you're a very, very busy man nowadays. But thank you to everyone who was watching as well. Thank you for all the contributions in the comments. We've had a lot of comments, some brilliant insight as well. It's really made our job a lot easier. So thank you for that. And stay tuned. I think we've got a Wall of Reds. Is it Wall of It? That's what the show's called, isn't it? Yeah.
Uncut.
Uncut, that's it. Not Wall of Reds.
You're on it.
I know. That's not great. I'm definitely fired now. Definitely fired. But yeah. Uncut is tomorrow rather than Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned. As I said, like and subscribe to the video if you did enjoy. But until next time, I'll see you later.